Today we're going to use Ascribe CX Inspector product to process textual responses and return thematic codes. So from the Ascribe homepage, we're going to go ahead and click on the CX Inspector icon. It's going to bring us directly into the CX Inspector landing page where we have the option, the only option right now is upload and analyze or get into an existing project. We're going to go ahead and upload and analyze store data. So today this is retail store feedback. This is the file we're going to be analyzing. You can just see real simple file. We've got a unique respondent identifier, a couple of closed-end questions, division, region, month, and then Q1 and Q2, both of which I believe tell us about your experience in our store and how can we improve our store. Okay, we're going to go ahead and open the file. And now the system is actually interrogating the file to prepare it for loading. Ascribe does tell us which fields contain open ends, so we can kind of see an example of the responses, the textual responses that are available in Q1 or Q2. We could analyze both together. We could break them out into their own questions, which we're not going to do today. It also does show us the closed ends that will be available for us to use for bannering, filtering, and other things. The options for loading for our AI analysis are over here on the far right. We are going to use generative AI today. You do have the option just to use split words and split characters to identify segments in your responses rather than generative AI, but we are going to work with generative AI, and we're going to tell it that the comments are about a retail store. We could say a retail store customer feedback. We could say a retail supermarket. We could just say whatever it is that you want to say to describe the data here to give it some context. We're going to leave the other things sit where they're at and go ahead and hit analyze. So the system is now analyzing that data, those two textual fields. It will segment the comments by pulling out the main ideas in the actual responses. The main ideas that are gathered from the responses will then be clustered and put into an organized category list or code list. The analysis may take a few minutes, so do know that you can close and notify, in which the system will let you know when it's finished running. It'll alert you through your email, and then you can access the project when you're able. Once the data is finished processing, we'll be shown the visualize page. So note here we can go back to the home page, to the CXI homepage by clicking the little home icon. The visualize screen is going to show us the initial results from analyzing the data. And then the edit screen is where we're going to be able to supervise or organize the results. We're going to start out in the visualize mode. These are the default visuals that the system will produce. We do get a bar chart, top 10 bar chart. Each of these visuals can be customized there are options for each of the visuals. So if we would prefer to see sentiment rather than count, we can do so. We can download into Excel or download an image file for each of the visuals that show up on the page. So again, we're getting instant results. We do have counts and percentages for each of these codes. So improving customer service is a code. I can click on that code and start seeing the pieces of the response. So these are the verbatim responses that included something about improving customer service. So you're seeing all of those responses that are currently coded to improving customer service. You can also see the closed end view of these responses. So these respondents, 14% were from the east, 7.9% of the west, so on and so forth with our month and our region. I'm going to go ahead and close this. Both of those reports can be exported to an HTML file if needed. All right. So scrolling on down, you'll also notice that the system created, or Ascribe CX Inspector created crosstabs for our closed ends. So giving us the top 10 codes the bannered by or cross-tab by the east-west, which is the division question. So we see 733 respondents were in the east. 56 from the east, we're talking about improved customer service. 30% from the west, we're talking, or 30 respondents from the west, we're talking about improving customer service. We do also have a percent here representing the percentage of the west that we're talking about improving customer service. We do the same with the month, so we can see month 8, 9, 10, and 11 here, and see just if the data, how the data is falling out across the month. We do have a few more options for our crosstabs. You can actually say how many codes do you want to see, how many banner points would you like to see. You can change the, if you want to see it netted by sentiment, you can net it by sentiment, and so on. So again, there are options for each individual visualization as well. Now, you can drill into the individual cells here. So for add more checkout lanes for month 10, I can now see the responses that we're talking about more checkout lanes for month 10. All right. So these are, again, the default visualizations. We can change the visualizations that we see using our chart options. So we do have the option to show a block chart. The grid is going to show us the 2 questions we analyzed. Sorry, the grid, this is the grid. The grid's going to show us the 2 questions that were analyzed next to each other. We can turn on sentiment if we like, the top positive, top negatives. And we can also create a co-occurrence, so it shows us the codes that were co-occurring most often. Word cloud. And then this allows us to say we want to see the data trended by month, and maybe we want the percents trended by month, so we can do that as well. So again, each of these things are available for us. We can also say we want to see our closed ends in a bar chart. So if we want to see our closed ends in a bar chart rather than in a crosstab, we can do so, and now it will give us a bar chart showing us the differences in the different closed end answers for the individual codes. When we're finished, we can, one more thing. Right now we're looking at counts based on comments. Since we analyzed 2 questions, individual respondents could have answers to either one of those questions. So you can change it to look by comments or by respondents. It will be the same if you're only analyzing 1 question, but we're going to go ahead and leave it at comments for now and hit OK. All right, so now we're seeing, again, I left the top 10 bar chart in there, but now we're seeing just the top 10 broken out by Q1 and Q2, the variables that we analyzed. We're also seeing a sentiment pie chart that we can drill into. So if we want to see the things that were being talked about negatively, we're going to have all of the negative responses in this particular report, the 290 comments that were classified as negative. We can also see how those were affected by the closed ends. Drilling down, this is the co-occurrence. So add more checkout lanes, express lane availability came up in 6 comments, improving customer service, customer satisfaction is a priority. Of course, those came up in 5 comments. So you're seeing the codes that were mentioned most often together. And then we have the word cloud. So this is an improving customer service word cloud. The prices word cloud. Let's just see, competitive pricing. So for competitive pricing, we see lower, compared, the different things that are coming out for pricing. So we've done that for our top 10 codes, word clouds for our top 10 codes. We'll scroll on down. And now we can actually see, and again, I don't want this to be 10. I want this to be my top 5 and hit OK. So I can see it a little better. So I can start seeing how the codes rise and fall from month to month. What's going on with the percentage of people talking about the different codes from month to month. And then we can see, so east versus west, what percentage of people were talking about improving customer service in the east versus the west, or competitive pricing, east versus west, so on. And as we go down, now we've got the months. So you can see the different ways that you can visualize the data. Again, these can be downloaded to a chart or downloaded to, so you can put that in a chart and it creates a quick little PNG, or you can create an Excel file that contains the data that is in the chart. So we can actually look at that and see the data that was actually in the chart. Let me bring that over so we can take a look at it. There we go. So you can see just the data behind the chart. Go ahead and close that up. Okay, so again, those are some of the visuals we have available to us, some of the chart options. We do also have some filtering options. So if you want to just see the East Division and you only want to see the negatives for the East Division, you have the option to do that. Hit OK. And now we're going to see all of those visuals, but it's just going to be based on negatives for the East Division. So now we have just the negatives for the East Division. Okay, so to remove the filter, we're going to just click here. And now I'm going to take off these, the word cloud and the co-occurrence take a little longer to produce. So I'm going to go ahead and take those off and then talk a little more about some of the other things we can do. We do have the ability to ignore codes. If you want certain codes not to appear in your visualizations, you can tell it to, if you want to ignore improve customer service, improving customer service will no longer appear in your list of codes. Our number one code is now competitive pricing. So again, we can ignore codes, turn it back on if we want. The final thing to talk about here is any of the visuals that you have showing, you can export to HTML, save that and share it. Okay. You can also export to Excel. The Excel export contains details about the different codes. Probably the most important, let's go ahead and open that up and take a look. All right. And in that Excel export, it does give us just all of the codes with counts. It gives us the codes and the ability to expand the responses that are in the code. So these are the codes, these are the responses that were in improving customer service. We see the coded responses in a vertical file. So respondent ID, response, codes applied, codes applied. We do also see a horizontal file, RID, responses, codes applied, marched across the page there. These are the response ID, respondent ID, the response, and then the segment and the code that was created from that segment. So this really breaks it down, what was extracted and what codes were applied by segment. The API data is really the raw data, and it gives us RID, the question that was analyzed, the segment that was extracted from the data, or the idea that it was extracted from the data, sentiment score, codes that were applied, and then all of our closed-end data. The last column here shows us the verbatim with the part of the verbatim that the row represents tagged in blue. Okay, so that's the API data. This is, again, available through the Excel export. All right, so those are all of the visualization options. We're going to now talk about editing or customizing the AI results. So the generative AI engine has analyzed each of our comments, and in those comments, it has pulled out the main ideas. So if I drill into the competitive pricing code, these are my codes. It's telling me 61 codes were created for my 1,043 responses. 797 responses were categorized into at least one of these codes. So 76% of my responses were coded. Competitive pricing had 66 responses coded to it. If I click on lower competitive prices, so this is the actual response, and it was coded to competitive pricing. Let's go ahead and click on lower prices. So for lower prices, these are the 10 responses where lower prices was pulled out as the main idea, or as one of the main ideas. The things that are in dark blue are the main ideas that, or the ideas that lower prices represent, or the piece of the response segment that lower price represents, okay? The ones in light blue are those that have been categorized somewhere else. The ones that are in black are the ones that haven't yet been categorized, you can actually click on those and categorize them if you want to manually. Okay, so again, you can really drill in to each of these and see, okay, what were people actually saying? What are those respondent IDs if you need to get that granular? The cool thing about this page is that we can now organize this data, net it, and save it to use for a future project. So to organize the data, one of the first things we might want to do is go ahead and net the codes. So if we hit net codes, the system's going to go through our list of 61 codes and put those 61 codes in themed nets. So we've got some general store improvements, and this is generative AI. So if I were to net the codes again, I might come up with different nets that maybe are more palatable to me the next time I hit it. So you can hit net codes as many times as you want just to get a netting structure that works for you. I'm going to work with what I have here. I've got a customer service net, a stock availability management net, product quality variety net, checkout process, business operations, store facilities, and other codes. And what I might want to do, I see increased staff levels. Maybe I would want to put increased staff levels up here in customer service because I feel like increasing staff levels should go in customer service. And same for fast service, knowledgeable staff. Actually, all of these, I think I'm going to pull on up and put into my customer service net. Okay, so I can drag and drop codes to move them into individual nets. I can also, if there's something that maybe I want checkout process to be a subnet of my customer service. So now I've got checkout process as a subnet of customer service. Okay, so again, my job now is to spend a little bit of time here organizing this, maybe condensing the code book so that it represents, what I want to get out of the data. So I have that ability to oversee what the system did. There are a few other things here, little tips and tricks that we can do. Right now, our others, that is these are the responses, the ones that are in black are responses that haven't received a code yet. But I can ask the system to go through the others, and after I've kind of organized my codes, I would do this, I can ask it to go through and suggest codes for some of these things. So product availability, maybe there are some things that I would want to put into product availability. The system has gone through all these uncoded segments, pieces of responses, ideas that were extracted from those responses, and suggested which codes they most closely match. Okay, the percentage on the end are the ones that they're most approximate to. So, here I might say go ahead and I could say, yes, code all of those that way. Don't code any of them that way, or just code this one that way. And when I'm finished, I hit OK, and it's going to code any of them that I have checked. Okay, so this is the code book over here on the right side of the screen. This is what the system's reporting on. And the code book, we can search it using keywords. So if I want to bring up all of my codes that have something to do with staff, or I want to customize that search and say I want any codes that have anything to do with staff, employee, or worker, I can put in a little search using the pipe symbol or the bar symbol between them to suggest as an OR operator. And now I could go through and figure out, okay, where do I want to put these things? So I want to put this and this up here. And do some of these codes go together? Are there things here that I'd like to put together? And increase staffing levels and staffing issues. I'm going to go ahead and put those two together. Improve employee attitude, enhance employee training and customer service, insufficient staff in electronics, improve staff presence on the store. That's actually, I think I would go ahead, staff availability. So maybe that's increase, or I could dig into it and say, okay, what are they talking about here with improve availability? Always have someone at the food counter. Station personnel near to those departments. Increase availability, more available employees. So yeah, I think I would go ahead and put that in increased staff levels. Okay, and I might just go ahead and put staff presence on the floor there too. And continue cleaning this up, condensing it as it works for me. When we're finished, I can save the code book, just give it a name. Saved code books will once we have a saved code book, and this is my retail code book, hit OK. Once we have a saved code book, it does show up in my saved code book, so I could apply it next time I reanalyze. So when I do my next set of data, this code book drop down, this code book will be available for me to use. Okay. I did want to show one more thing in the edit screen. We can search. So when we drill into an individual response, we're going to see the segments that were categorized into that response. So these are the ideas that were put together to create the exceptional service code. We can search just the segments that are on the screen, or if nothing is selected, we're going to be searching all of our segments. So I can search price, cost, expense, and start seeing all of these. So now I see the 110 segments that have been categorized into the codes that are listed over here. And I can start grabbing these and pulling these where I think they should be. So if I drill into an individual, it is going to show me just the responses for that particular code. Okay, so that's fine. I don't need to move that one. Clear, accurate pricing, that's good. But I can start seeing, again, everything that has to do with price, cost, expense, and get those where I need those, get those codes where I need them to be moving responses around and codes around as I need them to. So I wanted to make sure I talked about that. So now that we're back in the visualize mode, again, all of the changes that we made would be here, and you can go ahead and produce the reports that you need. If you need to access the project later, when you log back in, your project is available to you. You just click into it, or you click into it, and you'll be put in visualize mode first, then you can go into edit mode. All right, thanks so much. Have a great time with Ascribe CX Inspector.